Hello and welcome back to my F1 League Racing series here for the British Grand Prix, and if you've missed any of the previous rounds, go check them out with the card annotation in the top right hand corner of your screens. But this is how things are looking after 7 rounds of the championship. 4th in the championship right now, 67 points, quite a bit off of DM Guy. We're going to need a lot of work if we want to get into the title hunt once again. But looking over at the Constructors' Championship, and things are looking a lot better with 17 points clear at the moment, and we'd like to extend our gap here at my home Grand Prix, which, if you remember back to last season, my first ever League Racing series, this is where I got my first ever win at the British Grand Prix. Can we do something similar here today? Let's find out. But on to qualifying, and as you know, we're never usually a good qualifier, but we're going to try and break that here today, as we're currently 4th in the standing, so things are looking pretty good. Not the greatest run out of the final corner to start our lap. We're down just a little bit on our lap time as we go through turn 1 and turn 2, breaking into turn 3 and getting it nicely on the apex, avoiding that sausage curb on the inside. Now throwing it through the left of the loop and then getting on the throttle as early as you possibly can. We lost a little bit of time on entry, but gained a lot on exit. As you can see, we're about half a tenth up on our previous best lap time at the moment. Braking just after the 50-meter board, trying to get the car thrown in and cutting as much curb as you can possibly get away with. Now this is sort of like a V-shape entry and exit into the corner. Want to go tight on entry and tight on exit as well, and we kind of match our lap time at the moment out of that corner. So things are still looking good. We're still up on our previous best through the right-hander of Cop's Corner, and the car gets away from us ever so slightly. You can see we had to correct the wheel and a big power slide out of that corner. That loses us a little bit of time, about a tenth of a second compared to our best lap time through Maggots and Beckett's. And then on to Chapel now as we go for a good exit off the corner. About 12 thousandths of a second improvement right now. It's very, very close between our best lap times. Through Stowe, really attacking the corner as much as we can get away with, but we lose a little bit of time on exit. Now hard on the brakes into Club and then Vale, and this is where we gain quite a bit of time. We maybe hit that sausage curb just a little bit too much on the inside, but really tight to the line, and half a tenth gain there, which is enough to put us into P3 for the time being. We do drop down into 5th, but look at how close we are to 2nd place. It's a good improvement here in qualifying. DM Guy, so rapid in this season. I think it's safe to say he probably should be in a higher tier. Not with us in tier 3, but you've got to race against who you're up against at the end of the day, and he was just rapid in qualifying. So it's going to be a wet race for the British Grand Prix on the intermediates to start with. It's actually heavy rain to start with, but we are going with the intermediates, and it might dry up at the end of the race. So something we are going to have to look at as we are getting the race underway now. We formed up on the grid. P5 is 5, red lights, and it's lights out, and away we go. And it's a fairly decent start as per usual. We get the jump on Helium going into turn 1. Now turn 1 is a tricky corner. It's very easy to maybe cut up your opponent, or your opponent extend too wide and push you off the track. But both me and Helium, good side-by-side battle through there and through turn 3 as well. Getting a little bit too close, but no damage done, and we get the inside line into the loop. And we're going to get a traction off the corner, and that is going to allow us to move up into 4th in this race. Marken, as per usual, doesn't know how to start one of these F1 cars. He drops down into P3, but then gets the position back and moves up into 2nd place. The virtual safety car has been deployed here on lap 6 of the British Grand Prix. And we had a very scary moment on the end of the virtual safety car. As you can see, accelerating, had to slam on the brakes there as we were about 7 hundredths of a second away from getting a penalty or getting a drive-through. Unfortunately, F-Sane did get that drive-through penalty, but that is good news for me. That's going to allow me to move up into 3rd position when F-Sane finally does decide to pit. He's actually coming in at the end of lap 7 here, so he feels like he's got the gap. He can get into a bit of free air, not get held up by anybody, and try and work his way back up through the field as DM Guy going fastest now. But we move up into the podium position. But we do have a train of drivers following us at the moment, and that was basically how this race went. We had Jokeboat behind, Smowley, Zafso, and I think Nicholas Swan as well. Just within about 3 seconds behind me, just really holding on to this train. DM Guy Marken, so quick in this race. We were able to be really consistent and set fairly similar lap times throughout the whole race, but we just didn't have the pace to beat them. Some laps I might beat them when they made mistakes, but others they'd be so much quicker that they would always just end up gaining that gap over me, which was a bit of a shame, but we had strategy in our hands. We know how good we are on the tyres, especially when it comes to wet weather tyres. We know that it's definitely possible for us to do a zero-stop strategy. The guys at the front will be running into puncture territory at the end of the race. So that is something that we're going to have to be looking at, as 256 is doing his best Alexander Albon impression at the moment in this race, ignoring blue flags and not letting us through. Luckily, for lap cars, ghosting is on, so it's not really going to affect us too much. If we do catch up to him, we can just pass through him and we can get on with our own race. But yeah, moving ahead now a couple of laps later, and 256 is still there, being a nuisance and giving me blue flags. But it kind of gives me a little bit of tow, I suppose. I don't know really if the slipstream is that powerful in the wet conditions, but it gives us something down the straights maybe, and Jokeboke not yet able to get past. And we were just really strategic and just really smart with how we defended against Jokeboke. There were times when he would catch up to me, he'd be quicker, and he'd be about 4 tenths, but I knew that if he was not like 3 tenths behind me coming out of Chapel on the run down to Stowe, or even through here into the Wellington Straight, he was never going to get that opportunity to go for the overtake, because the straights, whilst they might be long here in Britain, they're not long enough, and the corners aren't big braking zones. And I feel like my driving style is more suited to maybe high speed, medium speed corners, and I lose a lot of time in the slow speed section. So luckily with Britain, a lot of the zones at the end of the straights are more medium, high-speed corners, so we didn't really lose too much time, and there wasn't ever really an opportunity for those guys to overtake me. So we run a little bit wide through Copse Corner, but we did the oldie run even further wide trick to make sure you don't get a warning or a penalty. You lose a little bit of time, but it's fine. It's better to lose half a tenth of a second than get a 3-second time penalty at the end of the day. As 256 now doesn't have any blue flags, so he can run on, and he doesn't have to worry about holding me up at the moment. But lap 14 out of lap 26, and this was basically just the race for me. I just ran at my own race in P3, doing a good job, and just making sure the guys behind were never close enough to challenge me. If they did get close enough, there was a little bit of a scary moment as 256 is doing donuts a little bit early. Unsafe rejoin, but again, luckily ghosting's on, so it's not really a big issue. Lap 19, then Jokeboke still behind. Smowley, thankfully, has got a 3-second time penalties. We've got 256 once again in front of us, and he's off for a spin once again, so don't have to worry about him. But 256 getting a lot of screen time here today, and so has the Alpine of Sandy Baggy now, so should be able to get past him quite easy. It's lap 23 out of 26, and it's starting to get drier at this stage. There were drivers who opted to try out the soft and medium strategy. I think here is TJD. Yes, TJD on the soft tyres, but as you can see, it's just not working out for them. And there was no need to really worry about pitting, and I even think, you know, the amount of time that you lose in the pit lane, it would have had to turn dry on like lap 21 for you to really gain the benefits. As you can see, that lap driver is similar pace now on the end of lap 24, but not really quicker. It's still, the wets are still the better tyre to be on, and DM Guy coming through the end, getting the race win. Mark and my teammate couldn't do anything today to beat him, but we are going to come home for a fantastic P3, our first time on the podium since our race win in Austria. We're still losing out 10 points to the championship leader, but taking a look at the Drivers' Championship, though, we're still P4, and there is a long way to go if we want to challenge for the title this year. But the Constructors is looking good. We gain on Aston Martin once again here in Britain, and we are on for that Constructors title. But that is it for today's race. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more F1 content, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.